Okay, chicos, so we learned about preterito a little bit earlier, and now we just finished learning about imperfecto. Both are past tense, so today we're going to talk a little bit about when you use preterito and when you use imperfecto. For preterito, I like to represent it with a lightning bolt because they're concrete actions that happen and have a defined beginning and end. For imperfecto, I like to represent it with waves because they're more ongoing or habitual things. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in detail. We use the preterite for when an action was completed. When an action was completed, for example, at a specific time or a specific number of times, or when an action began or ended, or when an action interrupts another action. So basically, preterite is just things that happened and they're concrete events that happened. Okay. Some phrases that indicate the preterite, things like ayer, yesterday, or anteayer, day before yesterday. These are all things that might mean that we're about to talk about something we did or something someone else did. That's going to be a concrete event. Just know that sometimes these phrases can be used with imperfect. So it's not a hard, fast rule, but these tend to indicate preterite. Okay. When to use imperfect. Imperfect is more for habitual things. We've been using that a lot when talking about our childhood, right? We've been talking about things that we used to do or things that used to happen. I used to play with Barbies. To set the scene, for example. So we also use the imperfect to describe things or scenes in the past. So we can maybe describe the weather, describe anything, a person or a scenery or something like that, describing someone's emotions, describing someone's age, saying what time it was, and also saying what date it was. So all of these things are more ongoing things. They don't really have a definitive start and end. For example, the weather is kind of an ongoing thing. It's not an event usually. It's more ongoing. Okay. So some phrases that indicate the imperfect, things like a menudo, so like often or sometimes or every day, these are all going to indicate that something is habitual or a repeated ongoing action. So these can help you remember when to use the imperfect. Okay, some people like to use this mnemonic device, Simba cheated. So Simba would be preterite, single action, an interruption, an event, beginning, or an arrival or departure. And then cheated would be imperfect, so a characteristic or description. Someone's health, too, saying someone was sick, that would be imperfect. Their emotion, their age, their talking about the time, an activity that doesn't have an end or a date. Okay. The only thing that I don't like this is that missing from the imperfect is also talking about the weather, and that's a big use of imperfect is the weather. Okay, so some words, some verbs can actually change meaning whether you put them in the preterite or the imperfect. So the big ones are saber and conocer. We learned about those earlier. They both mean to know. Remember, conocer was more for people and saber was more for like concrete facts. So if we take conocer, for example, to know a person, and we put that in the preterite tense, it's talking about a concrete event. So it's actually talking about the moment in which you met someone, versus if you say yo conocía in the imperfect, it's just saying you knew them. It's an ongoing thing. You knew that person in the past. Same with saber for knowing facts. If you put that in the preterite tense, yo supe, it talks about the moment, the concrete event in which you found out. Versus if you say yo sabía, it means I used to know or I knew that. Okay? It's an ongoing thing. Okay? There are other examples of this, but these are the two most common ones that I want you to know. Okay, so vamos a hacer práctica, chicos. For each of these sentences, I want you to decide whether it should be in the preterite or imperfect, and then fill in the blanks with the correct form. So, first one, de niña, mi prima siempre con los Barbies. So this should be imperfecto because it's a habitual action. She always used to play with Barbies. And when we put that in the imperfect form, it should be jugaba. Jugaba. Okay, next one. Ayer mi primo videojuegos por 4 horas. This one should be preterito because it's a concrete action with a beginning and an end. Okay, so it is a little bit ongoing because it happened for 4 hours, but it still is concrete and has a concrete beginning and an end. So we put it in the preterite, which would be jugó. Okay, might have to review your preterite endings as well. All right, muy bien. Next one. Yo muy cansada ayer. So this one should be imperfecto because it's an emotion. I was very tired. Oh, it's anteayer, day before yesterday. Okay. Estar in the imperfect form would be estaba. So it's an ongoing thing. It's not really a concrete event. It's more of like an emotional state. So it's a bit more ongoing. Okay. Esta mañana, mucho sol y calor. This would be imperfecto because we're talking about the weather. Okay, so remember we use hacer with a lot of weather conditions. We don't say it is hot, we say it makes hot for some strange reason. But the imperfect form would be hacía. Next one, de niño mi tío muy bajo. Should be imperfecto because it's a description. You're saying what he used to be like. It's an ongoing thing. There's no concrete event in which all of a sudden he was short. It's ongoing. So mi tío era muy bajo. Next one. This one has 2 verbs in a sentence. They don't necessarily need to both be in preterite or imperfect. So let's see if we can figure it out. Mi abuela, 18 años cuando su carro. The verbs are tener y comprar. Okay, it should be, the first one should be imperfecto because we're talking about age. Anytime we're saying how old someone was, we're setting the scene, we're describing them. So we say tenía, okay? And then when she bought her car, so that is a concrete event. She bought a car, that's a thing that she did, so it should be compró su carro. Compró su carro. Okay? Last one. Las 4 de la tarde cuando ella. Okay, so for the first one, we're talking about time. So 4 de la tarde is telling time. So if we want to say it was 4 in the afternoon, we'd say eran las 4 de la tarde. So note that it's eran, just like in the present tense, we say son las 4 de la tarde. It's plural because it's 4. Eran las 4 de la tarde in the past tense. If it was 1 o'clock, we would say era las 4 de la tarde. Okay? And then cuando ella should be pretérito. When she arrived, that's a concrete action cuando ella llegó. Okay, so I hope this was helpful in kind of starting to differentiate between preterite and imperfect. This is something that we will keep practicing for the rest of the year, and you will continue practicing throughout your career as a Spanish speaker. So if you don't fully get it right now, that's okay. We'll just keep working on it. Okay, adios, chicos.